With a clean, config-driven design in place, we can now extend the application to act on the world using the same predictable helpers to keep our output consistent as we wire up tool use end to end. You have built the JSON loop more times than you want to remember. Parsing tool calls, running the code, stitching the result back into the prompt. Every integration starts the same way, and every time you swear you will never do it again. Today you write the loop once and you write it right. By the end you will have a clean, hand-built engine that defines tools, fires them, handles batches, and gives the model errors it can actually recover from. Your learning tool use end-to-end, a key part of the exam. If you want to apply these concepts directly to Microsoft 365 administration, there's a hands-on course that shows you how to build AI agents for automating tasks like user management, security investigations, and compliance reporting. It covers Microsoft Graph, Python, Azure AI, and more, with practical labs and a full capstone project. Check the link for details. We start by defining a tool with a schema the model can actually use, so you can shape exactly what the AI calls. Then we handwrite the tool use and tool result loop, giving you full control over the exchange. Next, we handle several tool calls returned at once, because real workflows often need parallel actions. After that, we return errors the model can recover from, making your automation resilient. By the end, you walk away with a complete, reusable loop that turns any function into a tool the model can drive. When you give Claude a tool, the model reads the schema and description to decide what arguments to send. If the description is vague, like just the order ID, the model might guess and send something like order 10,493 instead of the structured A10493 your system expects. That breaks downstream parsing. The fix is to write a description that includes the exact format, because the description is the only documentation the model has. In this step, you'll register a tool with strict mode on, required fields, and a precise description, then watch the model call it correctly. This directly maps to the exam's tool implementation scenarios. Priya is building a weather tool. Her first schema has no strict flag, so the model invents a city parameter and passes London. She then adds strict true, sets additional properties to false, and marks location as required. Now the model must use the location parameter, and it correctly passes London, UK. But the model still guesses the units until she updates the description to say get current temperature in Celsius for a city. The takeaway: strict schemas and precise descriptions prevent the model from making plausible but wrong arguments. We'll define a getOrderStatus tool with a strict schema, required order ID, and a description that includes the format. Then we'll simulate a model call and see the parsed input. We start by importing the lab runtime helpers for headers and notes. The main function prints the step header with the exam blueprint mapping, domain D8, 10.6% weight. Then it shows an exam note reminding us this is a scenario-based skill, not recall. A pitfall warns that reading isn't doing, you must run it. Finally, a checkpoint marks progress. The actual tool definition happens in the lab body you'll implement, but the authored output shows the result, a tool registered with strict, true, additional properties, false, and required set to, order ID. The output confirms the tool is registered with strict mode on the definition, not on tool choice. It lists additional properties, false and the required field. Then we see the model called it with order ID equals A10493 and the input parsed successfully. The pitfall section shows what happens with a vague description. The model sent order 10,493 instead of the correct format. After fixing the description to include format ANNNN, the model sent the right value. This proves the description is the key to getting correct arguments, exactly what the exam will test. When Claude decides to call a tool, it doesn't execute anything itself, it just returns a tool use block and stops. Your code has to pick up that block, run the actual function, and hand the result back in a tool result message. The loop that does this is the agent loop, and the exam tests whether you know what keeps it turning, the stop reason. As long as that reason is tool use, you execute and send results. The moment it becomes end turn, the loop exits and you have a final answer. In this step you'll trace 2 turns of that loop by hand, so the shape of a tool result and the role of the tool use ID become muscle memory. Priya's script sends a message asking for London's weather. Claude responds with a tool use block, ID tool01A, requesting the city London. Because stop reason is tool use, her loop continues. She executes get weather, which returns 14 degrees and cloudy. She then sends a tool result message, carefully including the matching tool use ID tool01A. Claude processes this and returns a final text response with stop reason in turn. The loop sees the new stop reason and exits, printing the answer. This shows the exact handshake, echo the ID, and loop only while stop reason is tool use. We'll walk through a 2-turn conversation where Claude calls get order status for order A10493. You'll see the assistant's tool use block, the execution result we inject, and then the final text response after we send the tool result back. This Python script sets up the step header with the exam blueprint details, then leaves the actual implementation as a guided exercise. The comments point you to objectives.md for the definition of done and to .expectedoutput.json for the shape your output should match. The exam note call reminds you that this topic appears as a scenario question, not a recall question, so you need to understand why the loop is structured this way. The pitfall call warns that reading isn't enough, you have to build it under time pressure. Finally, checkpoint marks your progress. The authored output shows exactly what a correct hand trace looks like. Turn 1 ends with stop reason tool use and a single tool use block for get order status with ID tool01A9K. The execution line shows the result we'd get back, status in transit, ETA August 22, 2026. Turn 2 sends that result in 1 tool result block inside a user message, and Claude responds with stop reason in turn and a natural language summary. Order A10493 is in transit and due August 22, 2026. The loop ran 2 turns and made 1 tool call. Notice the pitfall warning at the bottom. Every tool result must carry the tool use ID it answers, or the API can't pair them correctly, and in a multi-call turn, that means silent mispairing. When Claude needs several pieces of data at once, it can issue multiple tool calls in a single assistant message. That is parallel tool use, and it cuts latency dramatically. 3 weather lookups that would take nearly a second sequentially finish in a third of the time. The trick is not just that the calls go out concurrently, it is how you return the results. If you send each tool result in its own user message, the API accepts it, but Claude learns that batching is not welcome and stops issuing parallel calls on later turns. The damage appears as latency 2 turns later, far from the code that caused it. In this step you will see the correct shape, 1 user message carrying all 3 tool result blocks, and then compare it with the wrong shape so you can spot the difference on the exam. Claude responds with a single assistant message containing 2 tool use blocks, get weather for Paris and get time for London. Your integration runs both tools, getting back Paris 18 degrees Celsius and London 14:30 British summer time. Instead of sending 2 separate user messages, you package both results into 1 user message with 2 tool result blocks, each referencing the correct tool use ID. This shape tells Claude that parallel calls are expected and valid. If you split the results across multiple messages, Claude interprets the interaction as sequential, which can break its ability to batch calls in future turns. The lab runner prints a header, an exam note, and a pitfall reminder. Watch for the checkpoint prompt at the end, that is your signal to open objectives.md and tick off this step. The script imports the shared lab runtime module and calls step header with the certification, module, step number, title, blueprint domain, weight, and technique. Then it prints an exam note explaining that this topic appears as a scenario, not a recall question, so you need to understand why this approach wins. A pitfall block warns that reading is not doing. The blueprint weights tell you where the marks are, but only running the step proves you can build it under time pressure. Finally, checkpoint is called with the current file path to mark progress. The header confirms we are on step 3 of 4, map to domain D8 tools and MCPs, which is 10.6% of the exam. The exam note reinforces that the scenario will ask for the best approach, not just a definition. The pitfall drives the point home. Blueprint weights show where the marks are, but only hands-on execution proves you can deliver. The checkpoint line tells you to open objectives.md and tick the box. That is the concrete action that closes this step. When you compare your result against .expected-output.json, match the shape, not the wording. When a tool call fails, the worst thing you can do is let the exception bubble up. That kills the conversation. Instead, return a tool result with is error set to true, and include a message the model can actually act on, like a hint about the correct format. This keeps the agentic loop alive and lets Claude recover gracefully. In this step, we'll simulate a missing order and watch how the model responds when given a recoverable error versus a dead end. Here's a concrete example. Our tool getUserLicense is called for user Priya. The function checks for usage location and finds it blank. Instead of throwing an exception, it returns a dictionary. That dictionary has its error set to true, so the model immediately knows the call failed. The text field contains a clear, actionable message: user Priya has no usage location, set it before assigning a license. The model can read that and decide to call a setUsageLocation tool next. If we had simply omitted the result block or raised an exception, the API would return a generic server error, and the model would have no path to recovery. We'll call getOrderStatus with a bad ID, see the tool raise an order not found error, and then return a structured error result. The model will read that result and ask the customer to double-check the number. We import the lab runtime helpers and call step-header to label this as step 4 of 4 in the tool use end-to-end module. The exam note reminds us this is scenario based on the exam, not recall. Then pitfall warns that reading isn't doing, you have to build it. Finally, checkpoint marks progress. The tool raised order not found, but instead of crashing, we returned a tool result with is error equals true and a clear message: the order ID format is ANNNN, and the customer should confirm. In the next turn, the model stops with end turn and asks the customer to double-check. That's recovery. The wrong shapes raising through, returning a bare error, or dropping the block all break the loop. On the exam, the correct answer is always the structured error result the model can act on. We have covered the full automation loop, from defining a tool schema to handling parallel calls and returning actionable errors. The single most useful thing to carry away is that your tool definitions are a contract. When you get the schema right and return structured errors instead of raw exceptions, the model can self-correct, and your automation keeps running without you. You can now define tools with schemas the model understands, write the tool use loop by hand, handle multiple parallel calls, and return errors the model recovers from. These patterns keep your agents reliable when they reach out to external systems.